crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with host David Lamb and the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Hello and welcome to the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday evening. Got a really interesting guest you are going to love. In the next half hour, going to be very useful. I am certain of it, but it's only going to be made better if you join the conversation. And the ways to do that at the bottom of the screen all throughout the program tonight. Call, text, email, get in touch with us. I would love to have you be a part of tonight's conversation. A couple of reminders: attorneys from Hollis, Wright standing by live. So if you want to give them a call, that's a free, confidential, and off-air service that Hollis, Wright makes available each and every Sunday night during the attorneys, so take advantage of that. Also, if you would like to text us, that number to know is area code 205-670-1949, or you can call a number you should know if you've watched the attorneys for any length of time, 844-LAW-TALK. That's the number you need to know. Remember, at all others, 844-LAW-TALK, 844-529-8255. Leading our conversation tonight is the managing partner of Hollis, Wright, Josh Wright. Good to see you, sir.
I really was just kind of watching your intro. I'm not sure I can get to your energy level. That's a good energy level today.
I'm excited.
You killed that. I mean, you killed that start. That's got to mean something.
This is an interesting show tonight.
Well, it is. You know, we have done a lot of spins on criminal law and some of the nuances associated with criminal law. David, tonight we're going to be talking about criminal law, but we're going to be really focusing in on bonding and how the bonding process works, why you have bonds, how you hear people get out on bond, and those types of things. We've got Lindsey Eastwood here, who does criminal law and is based in Birmingham, but also has an office over in Bessemer and works over in Bessemer. And we are super excited to have you on.
Thank you.
I can already tell, just you can see her. Like she's ready on this topic. This is good.
We got a pro.
This is you. This is you, and I like it. All right, first, tell us just a little bit about your practice, how you got into criminal law, and how how you have a good knowledge of this area of the law, which is kind of the bonding process. Because you hear this on the news all the time. Oh, so-and-so got out on bond. Well, what does that really mean?
Right.
And so doing a spin on it this way, I think, is really good. How'd you get into this area of the law?
Criminal law, for me, was process of elimination, to be honest. And I think that that's how a lot of lawyers reach their specialty. They begin in a certain field and narrow it down to what they're really passionate about, what they're really good at. And that's how mine developed, beginning with criminal defense, eliminating any kind of divorce, child custody work. That was difficult for me. And moving to criminal law, to me, it's a place where people really need a lot of help, really need qualified attorneys, whether those attorneys are appointed or retained.
All right, so you are in Jefferson County, also in the Bessemer District.
Yes.
And I guess, is there a big criminal practice down in the Bessemer area too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that that's part of what keeps the courthouse going. You know, Jefferson County is a unique county to Alabama because there's a seat in Birmingham and also a seat in Bessemer. And the criminal courts definitely are always busy. The courtroom's always full.
All right, talk to us a little bit about just generally kind of what a bond is. And we hear about this concept, and I've mentioned it a couple times in the intro, hear about this concept of someone, had to pay a bond. Talk a little bit about what a bond is and why we have bonds if someone's involved in a criminal event.
Absolutely. So bond is the same thing as bail. So making bond, bonding out, all of those terms can be used synonymously the same way. And what a bond is basically a promise to get a defendant to toe the line, so to speak, during the criminal process. So while the trial is pending, while the case is in its pendency, making sure that that defendant is doing what the judge says.
And is the bond generally determined through a statute, or is it set by a court? How does that work generally?
Yes, there is a statute in Alabama law as well as a rule of Alabama criminal procedure, but that schedule is used by the magistrate, and then the magistrate determines what the bond is for each crime. And it's based on what the defendant is allegedly committed. Now, the bonds will stack, so if you pick up 5 cases, robbing a convenience store, and you give the officer a false ID, then all of the bonds from each different charge are going to combine. I have a client who recently had a $500 bond, and the family was not able to make that $500 bond. So he had to sit in jail for 2 weeks until I was able to get a court date, get the case set, and resolve the case through a settlement. I also have a client with a $1.7 million bond, and that client will remain in jail until I can resolve the case by trial or settlement, or if I can get the court to lower his bond.
And so I guess the bond value is based on a number of factors. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
And what are some of those factors?
Well, it's the severity of the crime, so it is set by that schedule. But the judge has discretion between that certain range. So for a Class A felony like robbery or burglary, going from $15,000 to $50,000. For a capital murder, that bond schedule would begin at $50,000 and end at no bond.
What role do bail bondsmen, like you see these television shows, and I mean, some of them, like I love to watch because there's always drama involved in it, but what do some of these bail bondsmen, what role does that play in the process itself?
They are like an intermediary. Okay. So, families always need to help a defendant retain an attorney so that the attorney can kind of help guide selection of the bail bond company. You want to get a low percentage rate. So typically the bail bondsman will take between 10 and 15% of what the bond is. So I'm not good at math, so I won't do a demonstration for you here on air.
That's good.
But 10, 15% is what they're going to take, and that money does not come back to the family.
Okay.
So
that's actually paid out outstanding. So if someone's got a 10% bond on a $1,000 bond, someone's going to pay $100 out of pocket.
Exactly.
And you're not getting that money back.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting.
Are there different kinds of bonds? Because I've heard different phrasing, and I don't know if it's all the same thing, but are there kind of different kinds of bonds and different options?
Absolutely, and based on what you'd be eligible for, is determined by the crime. So for a recognizance bond, also called a signature bond, my clients are always saying, I just want to sign out, Miss Lindsey. I'm saying, I know we do. Let me work on it. Let me make it a good bond. But they all want to sign out, and you can't sign out on a domestic violence case or on a DUI until you can blow and be a sober person and interact with society again. But with a domestic violence, there is a 24-hour hold, as with a sexual assault case. You have to stay in for 24 hours before you can sign yourself out, and that cap is about $7,500 to $10,000. Again, another reason for an attorney is you want a lawyer who has a really good relationship with a pretrial release office of each jail, because those numbers are a little bit fluid as to what you can sign yourself out on. There's also a property bond. That's when you call your friend and you say, will you put up your house so that I can make sure that I stay in court? You have a cash bond. That's got to be paid in full. And I think that can be really unfair to poor families. I think that the bonding process in general in Alabama, there's a lot of room for reform and growth, and other states are doing it. And I think that hopefully, in the next few years, Alabama will catch up and eliminate some of these bond requirements. All
right, so I know we're getting ready to go to break. When we come back, I want to talk with Lindsey a little bit about additional restrictions the court can place on defendants, criminal defendants, in the court proceeding process through the bonds. And we'll talk a little bit about that.
All right, we're stepping aside our first break of the evening. As we do so, a reminder, are you following Hollis Wright on social media? I know you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They are as well. Search the term Hollis Wright. Find them. They're a really cool follow, a great informational, educational resource there for you. Stay tuned. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show 8 years ago, my hope was we would be able to do what we do best, which is to help people answer real-world legal-related issues they have in their life.
People oftentimes are confronting various legal issues and problems in their lives that range across the gamut of legal practice areas. Bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, just to name a few. And to be able to have a 30-minute platform or format to where we can just cover various legal topics once a week, that's obviously the primary focus of the show.
We love helping people. I think everyone at this firm feels the exact same way, that the reason we do what we do is to help people. And this show gives us the biggest platform possible to help as many people as we can in the community.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. Appreciate you being with us. As always, so grateful for you and your time and you joining us each and every Sunday night. Before we get back to our conversation, numbers that you need to know. If you'd like to text the show, that number 205-670-1949, or you can call us at 844-LAW-TALK, 844-529-8255. Josh?
Yeah, Lindsey, when we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the relationships you need to have. Go to a criminal lawyer that has certain relationships. It sounds to me like a lot of the bonding process is discretionary with the court. Have I missed that, or is that, I mean, I'm sure there's some guidelines they have to follow, but it sounds like a lot of this is really discretionary, where you're not negotiating with the court, but explaining to the court why the bond should not be X, it should be X minus something. Is that accurate?
Exactly. You want a lawyer who can argue on your behalf why this bond needs to be lowered. Once the bonds are initially set, that's when you really have the wiggle room to explain all of the reasons why, this defendant doesn't have any criminal history. This defendant has a likelihood that he will not be convicted on the present charge. This defendant has a great family. They're all here in the area. This defendant has a job that he will, not be able to work if he is incarcerated. That's when you really pull at the heartstrings of the court. And I think for the judges, it's a cerebral decision, that's made in their mind as well as their heart, and making sure that you can provide that full picture for the court, I think is the most important thing.
And I know the courts oftentimes get credit for the humanity of making tough decisions and working with criminal defendants to try and get them through the system, but sometimes it can go the wrong way, and they can get credit for the wrong thing. We're allowing someone to get out on bond that shouldn't have gotten out. I mean, and those things happen.
Well, for example, that's a good point, Josh. The Anaya Blanchard case is one of those that just has gotten so much attention. We're getting questions on it as well as to how that makes sense, because the defendant in that case and the accused, he had already had a conviction for a very serious crime, right?
Right. Well, he had actually 2012 cases that were attempted murder. Okay. Those cases went to the grand jury, and they were no billed. So that means that the grand jury did not indict him on serious cases in 2012. Then he picked up some drug cases in subsequent years, I think around 2014, 2015. And then in 2019 of this year, in January,
Last year.
I'm still trying to get used to the 2019-2020 thing.
We all are.
But in January of 2019, that's when he picked up attempted murder, robbery, kidnapping, and a possession of marijuana case for, taking advantage of 2 men at a Montgomery hotel. Now, under the Constitution, under the 8th Amendment, that man is entitled to bonds on those cases. It's not the judge deciding whether or not to, because he wasn't out on bond on a separate case back then, in January of 2019. So the judge set his bond at $295,000, and he got out. He was able to bond out. I'm not sure if that was property or cash or a combination of those things, but that's when he was out, and then picked up these new cases in 2019, and his bond was automatically revoked in those. So now, obviously, he would not be able to bond out. He has 2 capital murder cases, all of the January of 2019 cases, and he'll be in jail until those cases resolve.
Hey, this is off script a little bit, but I want to ask you this. Where do you fall on the issue with cases like that of serious offenders with physical crime versus drug offenders and jail time? I know it's a huge issue in our state as to, hey, should we be incarcerating people that are not physical offenders, but instead are drug offenders? You know, is that a gateway to a physical offender down the road? I mean, where do you fall on that? I know it's not necessarily our topic, but I always love to ask criminal lawyers stuff like that, because it's a hot topic right now that people are talking about, to try and find a way to reduce the volume of people in our jails and keeping the right criminals in jails, but not the ones that don't need to be in jail. Does that make sense?
Exactly. I am definitely on the far progressive side of that sliding scale. I believe that drug cases like marijuana should be decriminalized. I also believe that instead of incarcerating individuals, like I had a client recently who was sent to DOC, Department of Corrections, for a very small little crack rock, right? And he had had previous cases 20 years ago because of the sentencing guidelines. He was a habitual offender, and he's going to prison basically to complete the substance abuse program that they have there. What I would do is shift the state resources around. Anybody who has a drug case for possession, not trafficking, but for possession, should be able to go through some sort of rehabilitation. Yeah. I don't know how much good comes from staying in prison. Even if you can't make your bond because it's a $60,000 bond and you're from a poor family, I don't know how much good comes from waiting in jail day after day, hanging out with more people who have criminal charges on them. I think it can at times be a breeding pool for more crime. I think it would be better to have resources to support criminal defendants while their cases are pending.
And I didn't mean to get off topic there, but I like the policy behind the criminal side. I like to listen to people that we bring on the show, because we brought a lot of people that do criminal-related law. I love to hear the policy side as to what the right approach is, and it's a complicated issue, but it's an issue that definitely impacts those that are in jail, that are trying to bond out, those that have not had a conviction yet, and those that have been convicted in the past and are back in front of the courts again.
You know, relative, especially to the drug issue, and your point, Lindsey, about, I mean, I don't know how much truth there is to this, that in some of our worst prisons are murderers, you know, right, with folks who have really never hurt physically ever hurt anyone in the same prison, and kind of, you know, mixing together that issue. But what I'm curious about is, in the Anaya Blanchard case, do you believe the system, I mean, something didn't work? You know, do you believe it's a systematic issue? Is it a change that needs to be made, and that individual, you know, was able to get out, someone that, you know, had such a colored past and a colored history? You know, I mean, do you think the system did not work? Can you say the system did not work in that case, or?
You know, my heart goes out to that family, and I cannot imagine what my perspective would be if I had lost a child, you know, as they did. But I believe that he was entitled to a bond. Right. You know, I've seen a lot of social media about people saying we need to lock people up, we need to make sure that people can't get out on bond when they have kidnapping cases. But I don't think that's what Alabama law says, and I don't think that that's what the Constitution says. Right. You know, under the 8th Amendment, no cruel and unusual punishment, no excessive fines, excessive bail. And I'm not saying that the system worked, because he picked up 2 capital murder cases. Right. Maybe the grand jury messed up in 2012, when he had attempted murders, you know, 7 years ago. Yeah. I can't say for sure, but I think it's a tragic case.
It is really sad.
I know we're getting ready to get a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of in general the role the court can play in adding additional restrictions in addition to just a bond itself. Right. Let's talk about that. I meant to talk about that in that last segment. We didn't quite get to it. I want to talk about it.
We'll get right into that. We're taking our final break of the evening. Would love to have you join the conversation. Just a few minutes remaining in the show. Our final segment coming right up. Stay with us.
I'm attorney Tyler Vale with the law firm of Hollis, Wright. Many people ask the same question: why should I hire a lawyer? While there may be some legal situations that do not require you to hire a lawyer, the clear majority of legal problems would certainly benefit from having competent counsel involved. To begin with, the law is complicated. Even experienced lawyers typically do not represent themselves in court. A solid case with clear liability can quickly unravel without the help of a trained attorney. Lawyers understand the rules of evidence and know how to properly lay a foundation to get critical evidence and testimony admitted into court. Lawyers are trained to recognize legal problems early on in a case and can help avoid pitfalls that unrepresented individuals may fall into. Lawyers can also increase the value of a case by getting experts involved to help prove additional damages that an unrepresented person may not realize they are entitled to. An experienced lawyer has probably worked on cases like yours and can give insight to negotiating a fair settlement based on recent jury verdicts and settlements that unrepresented individuals may not have access to. Another important reason to hire an attorney is because the person or business you sue will likely have legal representation themselves. Non-attorneys are generally at a disadvantage when squaring off against opposing counsel or doing business with another party that has legal counsel. The law is complicated, and an attorney who is representing your adversary may try to take advantage of you. Our law firm offers free case consultations that allow you to meet with us for free during a face-to-face meeting, where we can discuss the type of case you have, the potential value of your case, and your likelihood of success. This initial meeting can help you decide whether you need to hire a lawyer. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on WVTM 13.
Welcome back into the show. 6 minutes remaining. This is the final segment. If you want to take advantage of the opportunities to speak with those attorneys from Hollis Wright, you need to pick up the phone and give them a call. About 6 minutes remaining in this show, so take advantage of that right now.
Hey, so Lindsey, talk with me about this. Does the court have the ability to impose additional restrictions on traditional bonding processes?
Yes, and the judges have the power, and that's why they're sitting in the big chair with the robe. So what they can do is restrict travel. They can say you have to stay with your mom at this address. They can force you into a rehabilitation. That could be a condition of your bond, saying while this case is pending, you need to go to the Foundry, Fellowship House, Alethea House, One Roof to get an intake assessment. Any of those things can also be conditions. And the big one right now here in Jefferson County is electronic monitoring.
So that you can be electronically monitored where somebody's monitoring where you are, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, those types of things?
Right. So there are two main types. Cellular monitoring, which requires a receiver to be plugged into the wall. It used to be a phone line, but so few people have phone lines these days that now they're connected through the cell phones. And then there's also the GPS monitoring. And these are ankle bracelets that are about this big. It's not a small instrument that are placed on the ankle of the defendant if they're on electronic monitoring. And in my opinion, the cost of this new contract with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office is just exorbitant. It charges the cost of electronic monitoring to the defendant, and that cost is between $225 a month to $300 a month. So it can go up to $10 a day. And for my clients who are incarcerated, they want an electronic monitor. They want one. And I'm working toward that. There are only 120 in the whole county. So that wait list is going to be created very, very soon. But whether or not they're able to continue to pay that amount, when we have a minimum wage that's $7.25 an hour, and you show up to a job interview with an ankle monitor, on your leg, and whether or not you'd be employable would be a question. So the burden falls to families.
Question we've got here. In any case when a defendant makes bond, what are the mandatory conditions of release?
Absolutely. You can't leave the state. You must keep your address up with the court. I've seen so many FTAs, which means failure to appear, based on people who just don't have notice of their court date. It's an old case. The case has continued out. They've moved. Please just call the clerk's office, call the judge, call your lawyer, and have your address updated that way. You can't pick up any new cases. So my clients will always say, Miss Lindsey, I didn't pick up any new cases. Didn't I do well? I'll say, yes, you did, but you also missed court twice. So that's why this warrant was issued and we're having this conversation again. So there are a lot of obstacles, but really 4 simple things to do to make sure that you're compliant with the mandatory conditions of being out on bond.
I'm assessing that there's really almost, you can tell from Lindsey, a maternal side to this practice, that a lot of times you really are lead guiding and directing. You're holding hands with people that don't understand the criminal process to try and help them work their way through the system.
There's certainly a social worker component, and it's not only to the client, it's to their mama, it's to their dad, it's to their siblings who have your cell phone number and call you about getting this bond lowered every other day. So there's certainly a lot of work in criminal defense. I think a lot of criminal defense lawyers sometimes have a bad name for being sleazy, but the criminal defense lawyers that I know and practice with really care about the people, really care about the work, and want to advance social justice reform in Alabama.
What happens if you do pick up a new charge while you are bonded out?
Right.
Can your bond be revoked?
Yes, and that's what happened in the Blanchard case, is that the judge automatically revoked the bond, and that was at the December 5th, 2019 hearing, that was automatic. I don't think that he and his lawyer even fought it because they knew that revocation was coming.
Well, it's a small area of the criminal law that is a significant component about people's freedom during the time that they're going through the criminal process. And so I'm glad we've been able to unwrap this tonight. It's been good.
Yeah, we've got about a minute and a half remaining, and just time enough for a final thought from the both of you. And Lindsey, if you would, you please go first.
Absolutely. I think that bond is an important issue, and it's at the very beginning of a case that can also come up down the road if you're trying to get that bond lowered. But it's important to hire a lawyer initially so that you don't do the obvious things like make statements without representation to law enforcement. But in addition, making sure that this bond is resolved early, I think is a critical thing. I think that the new conditions that might be available to you in your given county also reinforce the fact that if you have an attorney, especially when the attorney is local, knows the judges, knows the officers in the jails, knows what the new qualifications are, like electronic monitoring, I think that helps greatly. And finding a lawyer who really cares about you and cares about your family, I think, is also paramount. There's certainly plenty of us who do.
Good. So, one of the things I was going to mention is if you need to get to Lindsey, you can go to lindsey.eastwood.com. She's got a website. But if you forget that, all you got to do, we're on every Sunday night, is contact us, and we will get you directly to Lindsey. And so my hope is that people that are sitting on their couch right now that are concerned with a potential claim, bonding issues, criminal stuff, that they come to us so that we can get you to Lindsey.
Really interesting
Great job.
stuff.
Thank you.
You did a really nice job.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you all being with us, and appreciate you being with us as well. Thanks so much, and we'll look for you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.